We're streaming. But it'll give you a new link. It'll give you a new link. So just send that when it loads.
Vida, can you share your screen, please?
Yeah.
Have you given your attendees the new link in the live chat?
Which new link?
So you know that thing where it says live streaming has started? It opened a new tab for you, Joanna. That's on a new new link. It's not this link. So you need to take that link and you need to put it in the live chat over here. Joanna, can you share your screen again, please? Joanna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, can you share your screen briefly?
Yeah, what? Yeah.
Okay, so now click on that second tab. Click on that second tab that you have up there. Right, grab that link and put it in the chat for the other one.
Okay.
Yes. And now you can close this one, and it's your other one that's going to be going.
Okay.
Okay, you guys are set. I can leave now.
Okay, thank
Take
you.
care. Good luck.
So where's that second link?
The second link is here. And
Okay,
I think now you can share your screen and it should work.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. It's not sharing my screen though.
What is?
Okay. So we should share the link on the old one, right?
Yeah.
So I guess we're just waiting for people to move on to the new link.
That. Sorry for this.
Yeah, it's not your fault. If you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was saying that as I was typing.
Let me post on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There's one person who has said hi in chat, so I think it is possible to hear me. Let me know. Wait a couple of minutes. Amazing. I am heard. Just so you know, there's a little bit of delay. So I can see the video being streamed, but it's like 30 seconds earlier than when I'm speaking. So there's a bit of delay in me answering to questions.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like seeing myself in the past.
It's weird.
Mhm. Waiting a couple more minutes. Okay. Do you think we can start? Mm. Ooh. Got a message. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let me, yeah, Joanna, you can monitor this chat in case some people are confused by the link. Yeah, so hi everyone. We are deeply aware that we are starting half an hour late, and that's we're very sorry for that. That's on us. We had some technical issues with the whole Zoom, YouTube, everything. You know how technology is sometimes. But yeah, if it's okay with you, do let me know in the chat. We can kind of run over, I guess, a little bit. And yeah, I'm flexible. So if you're fine with that, we can just basically, yeah, shift the session by half an hour. Yeah, so just to get started, let's just jump right into it actually. So web development crash course, that's the name of this session. So just a little bit of housekeeping to start with. So this is a 1 hour taster session on web development that is for complete beginners. So you don't need to have any previous experience with any kind of coding or any kind of software. So this is meant to be an interactive session, especially since there's very few of us, which means that you can really take the chance to, ask any questions you have, and we can take this a bit more personally than kind of a large scale workshop. Joanna, if you're able, maybe in the chat, you could maybe find the link to the PDF for the slides, just so people can access them after the talk, in case they don't want to rewatch the whole session, because the session is recorded and will be available on YouTube. So 1 hour is a very short time for a workshop, and with web development workshops, I usually do 2-hour workshops. So 1 hour is a very little time. So the way I'm going to approach this is really more of a taster session. I'm going to give you some pointers. I'm going to give you just like a general idea what web development consists of, but we won't go into any details. And at the end of the session, I'll give you a few pointers on websites that you might want to look at, just to continue and further your learning, just so you have a better idea what's out there and what kind of resources might really fit your way of learning. So the chat, we have a little chat right here. So feel free to, again, interact, post any questions, anything. There's no such thing as a silly question. There's only silly answers given by me. when I make mistakes, but yeah, hopefully I won't be doing many of those. And yeah, so we can just do a little bit more of introduction and then get started. So this session is run by Hoppers. Hoppers is Edinburgh University's very own society for gender minorities in informatics. So they do things like socials, interview prep, so like technical interview preparation, workshops on different technologies, but also on, more like soft skills and talks. So it's a very good place that has lots of regular events. So it's a good kind of community to interact with if you want to kind of get more engaged with tech. Here's their website, and they also have an active Facebook group. And then there's me. So my name is Vaida. Hi. Those are my links if you want to maybe tweet at me with some questions, maybe on like career advice or whatever. I've also got my email on there. And yeah, I'm a UX designer and developer. So UX stands for user experience. It's kind of more user-oriented part of working on tech. So it's about, making sure that the software works in a way that users expect. And, like sometimes I'm sure you've had that experience where you're going through like an app or something and you can clearly see that like this was not meant or was not designed in an intuitive way. Well, that's the kind of stuff I try to work to reconcile. And I was previously Hoppers' diversity and wellbeing officer. That's a very pretentious looking picture of me. So let's just get started. And yeah, let me know during the talk as well if yeah, you can't hear me, like if you need me to go a little bit slower, yeah, just let me know. So let's just start at the very, very basics. Like, what do websites contain? So I've got a few links here. It doesn't really matter. I just chose them because they're quite simple as websites. So this one called Windows of New York. So it's just this kind of very aesthetic looking page where someone made illustrations of windows that they found really pretty and interesting. So it's like almost like an art portfolio. And it's minimalist, but it works well, right? It's got colors, like it's presented nicely, but like what is it actually, this website? What is it made out of? So depending on your browser, you'll do this differently, but it's fine if you don't do the section yourself. Like this is meant more as like an overview section. So we have like an actual workshop part after this. So don't worry if you're not able to fully like do this part. But if you right click on a website, make sure not to right click on an image because that gives you different options. But here, let's say on the top right here, I right click and there's lots of information, like different things we could choose. And we're going to choose view page source. Now what that opens is like this, a whole lot of text that looks kind of like nothing comprehensible, right? We scroll down. Yeah, it just looks really weird. It looks kind of codey, like, like old computers. So let's actually see what there is in it. Because maybe we can start making sense of it. So let's see here. Okay, window. Okay, we've got something that says color, something that says background color. Then we've got, we have address, and then we have an address, and then we have neighborhood, we have El Barrio. Okay, and we have another one exactly the same, window, color, but the colors here are different, right? Then you have address, neighborhood, okay, and that just continues on. Well, you can kind of already start making a link, right? Like this text is probably somehow just defining, this structure, right? Like there's this window, it has this address, it has this district, and so on for all of these little pieces. And so there seems to be some elements that, describe the content, like address, neighborhood, this is the text we see, but some others that define the style. So here we have style, and it gives us, a color, a background color. So you can see that there's like different elements going on here. And we scroll up here. we have this that looks like some proper like code that's very incomprehensible. But actually, if we look here, we find that it says Google Analytics. And actually, all this is just this pre-made snippet of code that loads in Google Analytics onto the website. So that's like a third kind of content we notice here is something that has to do with loading in a specific resource and configuring it. So that's like more like a code thing rather than describing the content or describing the style. It's showing us like some proper like scripting kind of coding. So okay, that's interesting. But is this how people like work with websites? They just open this page and like read through it? Well, no. And browsers are very good at making things easy to work with. So if you right click again and do inspect element instead of view page source, and again, these terms will be slightly different depending on the browser you're using. I'm using Firefox, but it's going to be called slightly differently in yours. And we get this. We have this like kind of dashboard that appears. And this is very, very useful. You're going to notice first thing is that if you scroll over the things in here, it starts highlighting things in your main website. And actually, all this is just a nicely formatted and interactive version of that view page source we saw previously. So if I hover over this, you see it highlights Windows of New York. Now, if I click this little arrow on the left of it, that just kind of unfolds that. And then I go deeper and I go deeper. And like I can see we have like a Facebook something, Instagram something, where these are just like the links actually. And so it allows us to easily see, all the different pieces of content. And then on the right here, we have some other information, and that's actually all the style information. So, height, width, margin, like, sure, we want like a Facebook link, but then how does it actually look? Like we want it to be of a certain color, we want it to be aligned. So this is very useful, and this is what web designers and developers use to kind of place things and kind of, make small edits and see how things look. Like if I want, I can turn off these check marks and, like, oh, I've changed the page, or I can even start deleting things. So like, yeah, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. Yeah, just like delete elements. Now, when I'm saying delete elements, I'm not actually like hacking into the website. If I reload this website, what happens? Well, we get the original website that we had at the start. And why is that? Well, the thing that your browser does, whether, Chrome, Firefox, so on, it downloads pages and it shows them. So when you go to windowsofnewyork.com, that just goes to the specific server or just large computer with data stored in it. That's basically what a server is. Goes to a server that has the Windows of New York files. So, the images, like any kind of scripts, but also this view, like this page source that we had previously that actually defines how the different things are added together, and your browser just displays it. It takes, this text file and then shows it nicely as this like nicely designed website. And so at this point, when I'm making these edits and I'm like kind of figuring out how it's designed, how it's using its like different elements, that's just me working on a downloaded version. It's as if I, downloaded an image and opened it in Photoshop. I'm not actually changing the image that was originally, on the website where I downloaded it from. I'm just, messing around on my own local copy of it. So, okay, so that's kind of the idea, right? We're writing some text and we make it into something that looks like that. Okay. What can we see? Oh, Twitter. Let's open a more complex page, because that one is still pretty simplistic, right? But like for any single website, you can always do this view page source and inspect element. So let's look at something more complex like Twitter, just to see what it looks like. Oh, I'll refresh. Yeah, so you can see here, it's very non-readable, and that's because a large company like Twitter, not only is it loading data from millions of different, places, like it shows you a timeline that's specific, on you as a user and so on, but it also uses a lot of tools that kind of don't make the website as readable for people. So it like uses little processing things. But yeah, we can still start making sense of some things, like we see here, again, the same thing we saw before: style, background color, border radius. We see that it's a button of type submit, something Helvetica, that's a font type, line height. Then, oh, there's like we've detected that JavaScript is disabled for your browser. So this is probably like an error message you get. And yeah, you look upwards here, and what do you see? Oh, Google site verification, search, shortcut icons. So even though you can't read all of it and you don't know what it does, you can kind of just, have a quick look, and you can start figuring out bits and pieces. And that's kind of how learning web development and any kind of programming is just kind of poking at things and slowly learning bits and pieces until you have a good idea of like the whole. So, okay, we've had a little look around. Maybe we should start doing something ourselves. So this is the website we'll be using for the workshop, just codepen.io. And let me quickly open just a few examples of what we can find on it. Okay. CodePen is very useful. What it gives you is that it gives you these, let's see, learn, discover, start browsing. Okay, trending. Let's go on trending. Here on the left. Here we go. So it's basically this online editor. And if you click on one of these projects, you're going to be able to see a view with some code on the left or on the top, depending on your settings, and then actually see, let me zoom out, see a website that was built on the other side. And so that means that for all of the projects put on CodePen, you can see all of their code nicely formatted, not in the way Twitter has it, where it's all like not understandable, but actually like human readable content. And it's very, very nice. And you can start kind of learning things by poking around at these different projects and editing them. And we're going to be using CodePen just to do this workshop to kind of start building a little website. So again, that thing I was talking about at the very beginning, where I was saying, yeah, there's some content, there's some style, there's maybe some like codey code. This is exactly a good example of this, because you can see that there's one section that's completely empty, but then there's two sections that are filled. And I'm gonna let you guess here what happens if I just delete this. The right side will update accordingly in just 2 seconds. Okay, so now this is looking very basic. The images are still there, the content is still there, but there's no style, right? Like the way it had with like the fonts and the placement. So I'm gonna just paste, no, not paste. Yeah, just Control Z. And you can see the style is back in. And so if I actually have a look at what this CSS seems to have, has font size, margin, height, text align. Let me just zoom in so you can see it better. Max width, grid area, align self. Well, you basically, I think you've understood what I'm trying to get at here, is that CSS does the styling. It looks at different things. So here we can see it's saying image 1, title 2, title 3, image 6, and it's saying, okay, I want this thing to look like this. Now, where are these things defined? They're defined in the HTML. So you can see here, there's some weird symbols, but inside of them we have pretty like common things like main, header, then there's H1, okay. There's some other things, but yeah, Linus Lohoff, art direction, photography, and we have like a little section here, a little address here. And so, you know, content. And here we have IMG, probably stands for image, right? And then there's like a link. Okay, well, HTML, it stands for hypertext markup language. And so the idea of markup is just you have some content. So let's say some text, and you're marking it up. So you're telling the computer, okay, I want this to be a paragraph. I want this to be a header. I want this, you know, to be a section. And then in CSS, which stands for cascading style sheets, like style sheets being, you know, where you style things. So you say, I want the image that I put in the HTML to look like this. I want the text to be larger. I want the text to be smaller. That's the idea. And then JS, well, there's nothing in here, so we don't exactly know what JS does, but there's this nice example that I think will help you see. Yeah, so here's a little game made using JavaScript, the JS. And again, this is running in the browser, so there's no reason why you can't make video games using, you know, native web technologies. You can make websites, but you can also make interactive things, and that's exactly what JavaScript does. It deals with interactivity. So let's actually have a quick look at it. Again, lots of codey words, but a lot of things we can also start making sense of, right? Gravity, background, color. Okay, that's like a style, but then we have, you know, physics, density, and let's, oh, okay, there's like some different looking things here. Math, player speed, if key is down, player velocity, player speed. So yeah, JavaScript seems like it does all of the kind of interactive bits. You know, in the previous website, the kind of portfolio website, yeah, sure, I can scroll around, I can click on links, but there's no actual kind of, you know, intense interactivity. Well, here I'm the one, you know, controlling this character with the arrow keys and the space bar and the mouse. So that's what JavaScript does. It reacts to user input, and it also, you know, you can make it react to, you know, different things. So, you know, I can make it so my arrows affect the character, but also when the character moves and touches an object, that does something else. So you can make different elements of the web page interact with each other as well. So we're not going to do any JavaScript today, unfortunately, because it takes a little while to get the hang of it. But we're going to look at some HTML and CSS. Let me see. Yeah, I think we're ready to have a little look at CodePen, and I'll just take a quick moment to open the chat just to see if there's inspect on a Mac. I'm pretty sure that that's what it's called. Yeah, so it's slightly different in every browser, and also there's slightly different functions in some browsers. So, you know, some people might prefer using Firefox for web development because of this and that, while some might prefer using Chrome. But at the core, it's the same thing. You're just inspecting things and having a look around. And when you're building your own website, you know, it can help you figure out where your bugs are and so on. So yeah, let's just start coding. And let me have a drink of water because I am rushing through this. All right, much better. Now I can go a lot slower since this is the kind of main meat of the, oh, well, I should say the main falafel of this workshop. So yeah, let's just get started. So on codepen.io, just click on Start Coding. You don't need to log in or anything, I don't think. It will just pop this open. It might pop this open at the top, maybe on the side. It doesn't matter too much. The first thing I'll do, though, I'll just close JavaScript, and I think I'm zoomed in a little bit so you can see stuff. So, okay, let's just start. Again, HTML is content, so let's write something. Hello there. Just for a little bit, and this right side will refresh. It's going to basically show us what when launching this website, what it will look like when we're taking the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript all together. So, okay, shows me hello there. That's a good start. So let's continue. Let's say this is my portfolio website. Hello there, stranger. My name is Vida. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's not what we wanted, right? Like we wanted it to, you know, make a little space, have this on 2 separate lines, but it's just continuing on. And the reason for that is that the computer is not, you know, it's not going to assume things. It's just going to do exactly as we're telling it. So what the computer actually sees is just this one single line, because we didn't tell it, you know, oh, I want this to be a paragraph. I want this to be a header. We're just telling it some text. So it just shows us that text, you know, simple and easy. So what we actually need to do is that we need to start, you know, marking this up. So we're going to have to use that little symbol you might have seen in the, here in these areas, you know, this little caret, I think it's called. Just, yeah, lesser than, greater than symbols. They should be, I think, on the lower right of your keyboard next to the M key if you're using like a UK keyboard. So we're going to write that H1 and that. So what that stands for is header 1. It means a very large header. It goes down to H6. So it's a way to, you know, mark up the hierarchy of your content. You know, you have a title, you have maybe like a subtitle, maybe each of your sections has a title, so you can use those 6 headers to mark it up. So, okay, that had the effect we wanted, right? It made it larger. That's nice, but we still wanted to, you know, stop after stranger, like hello there, stranger is our header. My name is Vida is maybe our paragraph or maybe our second header. So the reason why it's not doing that is because we didn't tell it where we end the header. And this is gonna come bite you a lot of times, as it has done for me when you're first learning, is that you have to make sure that you're opening and closing your tags. So this is a tag, you know, like an informational tag that I'm saying that whatever is inside it is a header. So to close your tag, you do exactly the same thing as you have here, where you write H1, but just at the front here, after the first caret, you add the little front slash. It's kind of like saying this is the end. Like this is saying this is the start of H1, this is the end of H1. And to make it more kind of readable, you might want to rearrange things so, you know, it's all in one line, so you can easily see, oh yeah, I start, I end, okay, that's fine. And so you can see on the right now, yeah, that worked fine. Now it has a header and the rest of the text is unstyled. Let's just practice this again. And let's open H2, close. Okay, exactly the same style. And you can see here, large text, smaller text. You might be a little bit confused because I said that CSS does the styling. And it seems here like the HTML seems to do some styling on its own, right? The text is bolder and larger. And it is true, there are some kind of basic styles applied to these basic HTML elements, but the idea is very much that the CSS does the styling. And a lot of the time when people start a new project, they'll download a CSS style sheet from the internet that completely removes all of the default styles just so they can start at like a base level. Yeah, so wouldn't worry too much about it. Let's open P, a paragraph tag, sorry. Let's close it. And oops. Again, if there's nothing in it, it's just not going to show anything. But if I write, this is an article. And wait a little bit. Yeah, here it is. It shows up. Now you might be wondering like, okay, yeah, H1, H2, P, yeah, that makes sense. But where am I getting these from? Well, these are just default tags that are provided by HTML. And if you, here we go, supporting materials. there's a website, two websites. One of them is like more for beginners, while the other one is more what's used as industry standard. But so let's use W Free Schools for HTML and CSS. If you open this, or you just search W Free Schools HTML and W Free Schools CSS, I'm just gonna quickly open these so I have them. It's gonna give you here on the left side a lot of elements, and these are all the things that you can use. And what's useful with this website is that it gives you little examples that you can try with a little editor. So if you go into HTML headings here, here you go, it shows you all the headings, and then it shows you how to use them. And this is what I've just shown you, right? Like you just kind of open a tag, close a tag, and kind of gives you some context of what it means. And try it yourself. Here we go. Gives you a little editor with the code already in there, so you can easily make changes in here and, you know, copy paste something you like. So if we want, we can find some other things we want to add. Let's say you want to add an image, and says, okay, this is how you do it. Okay, well, let me just copy paste this and see if it works. And I'm gonna see what it does. Okay, notes. Okay. Huh, that's weird, right? Because we wanted an image. Why is it saying Italian truly? Well, let's have a look at what we actually wrote here. One thing you might notice is that I said, you know, you should open and close tags, but this one doesn't seem like it's only one piece. Like there's stuff inside of the actual tag, like we have image and then we have this whole section of things inside of it, but it doesn't actually close. And that's because if you think about it, an image is just a piece of content. Like when you have a paragraph, you can say, oh, this is the start of my paragraph and this is the end of my paragraph. But for an image, you can't really say, oh, this is, you know, the starting pixel and this is the ending pixel. You're just kind of downloading an image as one thing. So image tags are one of the tags where you don't actually have to close them. They just exist on their own. Okay, src equals something something alt something something. Well, let's look here to give me information. Oh yeah, it does actually. The image tag has two required attributes. src specifies the path to the image, and alt specifies an alternate text for the image. So src actually stands for source. And the issue that we're having here is that we're telling it that we have an image that we want to display, but this doesn't actually exist on our, like, CodePen doesn't know where this image is. Like we didn't download it to anywhere. And so because of this, because it can't find the image, it displays the alternative value, which we define here. And the alternative value for the image is also what's used by screen readers when people, you know, who don't see very well, when they're going and using a screen reader, it kind of reads out that value instead of, you know, displaying the image. So it's actually also an accessibility feature. So, okay, we do want to see an image in this case though. So let's search for plant. Let's leave that. Okay, images, let me see. Houseplant, Wikipedia, okay. I'm gonna right click on that image and I'm gonna copy, I'm gonna do copy image location. I think that's the one I want. Again, there will be many options. We don't want to copy the image itself. We want to have like a link to it, right? So copy image location, just paste that in and see. Okay, yeah, that works. If I pasted it into my search bar, it just shows me the image without anything else. So there should be the correct link. Let me go in here and paste it. Yep. Just wait for a little bit. Yep, perfect. We have our plant. It's a huge plant, but it's there. It's getting there, right? Okay, let me just check. Yeah, no questions yet. If you're being silent, I'm guessing everything is going smoothly. So do let me know if it isn't. Okay, so this clearly starts to, you know, make us see that we might want to start styling, right? We want to make the image smaller. We might want to add some colors, but let's just do one thing before that. Let's maybe, add a little link, because, websites, they're just, some text with some images and some links, right? So let's figure out how to do that. HTML links, here we go. And you can also just Google, like you don't need to necessarily use the sidebar. You can just Google HTML links, and usually one of the first few websites you'll get will just give you something you can kind of either read or copy paste. Okay, let's see. HTML link text. Okay, and here's an example. wfreeschools.com, visit wfreeschools.com. Okay, let's copy that. Let's see what it does. I mean, right now I'm just kind of very easily copy pasting things, but that's because I kind of understand what they're doing. It's always a good idea. It's okay to copy paste, totally, and to kind of figure out how something works by copy pasting and editing it. But it's very important for your own projects that you kind of, figure out what exactly that code is doing, because if not, like, you'll copy paste and it won't work and you won't know why. And it's good to kind of read through things and type things out yourself as well, to just get used to writing things. It's very useful for like learning how to open close tags, making sure you're not making these writing mistakes, right? So let's see here. Yeah, so this, again, an example of something where you open and you close. Now, they don't, the two elements here, the two tags don't look exactly the same. That's because we have this thing inside of the starting tag, the opening tag, that includes the link, but you only have to specify any kind of optional or additional features of the link only inside the starting tag. So this first A tag, and then for the closing tag, you just need to say, this is where I want to end this link, and that's it. You don't need to add anything to the second one. So let's look at what this did. Okay, give me a link, the classic blue link. I click on it. Okay, yeah, it tells me something about security, but the link does work. Like if actually we change it to, we change this link to codepen.io. Let's see, it's gonna load it. Yeah, here we go. We opened CodePen within CodePen. Pretty cool. Yeah, so now we start looking into more depth here. So A just stands for anchor, just a way to say link. So yeah, we opened it, we closed it. Href, so again, reference, and here's the link to the website that we wanted to open. And that's, again, that's in the tag because that's like information about the tag, but that's not something we're actually showing to the user. What we're showing to the user is what we're putting inside the tag, which is visit wfreeschools.com. So yeah, so what's inside is what you see, and then the tag contains lots of details such as where we're going. And yeah, just work. Okay, let's start doing some styling now, because we have like a few elements now. It's looking like a proper website, but we might want to, make it look good. So the way CSS works is that, so cascading style sheets work is that we want to, to take an element and then say, I want it to look like this, or I want it to look like that. So it's what's annoying is that all three of these are different languages. So they actually are written slightly differently. So that's going to be, again, a little bit of a pain to get used to, but you as long as you practice, you're just gonna get there, So let me see. Okay, let's write dot. No, sorry, not dot. What am I doing? H1, right? Then you're gonna have to open the curly brackets and close the curly brackets. And inside of here, we're gonna be able to say, how do we want the H1 to look? Let's say, well, how do you often say these things? Well, you'd say the color of something, I want it to be blue. And that's exactly how we're gonna do this. We're gonna say color. Do you know that color is misspelled in the American way, unfortunately? Then you're gonna add a colon to say color, here's what it is, and you're going to write blue, or whichever. Well, yeah, let's just stick to basic color names. And add a semicolon. This is very important. This basically tells the computer, I'm done. I'm not telling you I want it to be, blue with a shade of red. I'm not telling you it's blue, but in certain situations it's red or whatever. This is it. This is the end of my statement. Let's move on to something else. If you don't include the semicolon, you might end up with issues where the rest of your code is not considered in the same way, and that could cause some problems. So it's important to, make sure that you keep to this exact way of writing. So here we go. The text became blue. That's cool. Okay, let's say we want the background color to be different. Background color, pink, semi. Okay, boom. There we go. That's working fine. But I don't like the fact that it just continues on here, because the way headers work is that they take the full width of the page. So let's just maybe change the width to something different. Let's say 200 pixels. Pixels, as you know, just like how much something takes up on screen. Here we go. That changed the alignment. Okay, that's cool. Again, where am I coming up with all of these? Same way as with the HTML. If you look for W Free Schools, CSS tutorial, lots and lots of different things you can use. Backgrounds, borders, so on and so on. So let's do exactly the same thing as last time. Let's look at one of these and figure out how it works. Again, gives you examples, gives you different styles of borders. Shows you some examples. Okay, no examples. Oh, well, here's an example here, border style dotted, So let's ignore the fact that we don't really know what this P dotted means, but we are familiar with the curly brackets now. So let's just copy one of these, because that's the bit that's relevant to us. And let's say I want to apply it to my H2. So let's just go down here outside of the curly brackets. Let's write H2. Let's close and open, and then paste, border style dotted, boom. I have a border that is dotted. Now notice here, I kind of, I made some spaces, while here I didn't. It's very good practice to keep a consistent style. It doesn't really matter how you do it or which one you pick, but it's important to choose the style of how you're gonna kind of put spaces in your code. So it's quite nice to have this this alignment where I have like the thing I'm talking about, and then there's like all of the other ones are indented to the right. So I can clearly see where I'm missing a semicolon, where I'm opening and closing things. Again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the computer doesn't really care in this case. So you could just have everything without any spaces like this, and it would still understand it. But for your own readability, you might want to kind of keep it consistent. Okay, let's look at a few other things. Let me just check that. Nothing. Okay. I'm guessing you're all professionals at this now. Okay, let me copy paste a few times just to have a few ones. And let's say I want to apply a style just to the very last paragraph, because it's a very important one. I want to stress my point. But if I do something like, P, open, and I do border, and now I'm going to define a border in a more complex way. I'm going to say 2 pixels. I want it to be, what are the options? Dashed. I want a dashed border. Dashed and red and semicolon. You can see it applied the style, but to all 3 paragraphs. Well, that's annoying. I want to only pick one. So that's something you can do with classes. So just as we have these little properties, href, in an image, we tell it the source. We can tell a paragraph that we want this to have like a little tag, like, you know, in a document, or like in a folder, or like let's say in Pocket, like, you know, where you can store your links, you can add tags, right? You can say, oh, this is history, or this is for this course, and then you can easily just search back and find all of that content. Well, it's kind of similar here, where I'm just going to tag it by adding a class. So again, I am typing it after the P, but before the closing part of this, adding a space. All right, class. Now I put equals, and I put some quotes. Again, it's annoying to have to get used to writing in a specific way, but you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. And I can name this anything I want. So I'm going to call this info. Let's say it's a information section, and I think it's very important. So in here, you can start writing, but the thing to take care about is that P, H2, H1, these are all default tags, so I don't need to write them in any special way. I just write, you know, as it is, H1, H2, P. But a class, I'm defining this myself, so I need to make sure that the CSS knows that I'm talking about a class here. So how to do that? You just add a dot, and then you write info. So this tells the computer, okay, I want you to look at all of the elements in my codes that have the tag of the class info. Open, close. And let's say I wanted to have font dash size of 40 pixels. Boom. So you can see this only affected the very last one. Now, let's say what's nice with classes is that you can apply it to as many elements as you want. So if I copy my class here and I add it to the H2 here, yeah, you can see here it will affect the H2 as well. So basically the way you can structure your style is that you don't need to say for every single element, oh, this color, this background, this width, and then, you know, this color, this background, this width. You can kind of group things together and say, yeah, for all the elements that have a certain class, like for example, you can call it, I don't know, side section or like note or something, and apply it to different types of elements and just pair things together and basically organize your styles in a way that that makes more sense code-wise. Yes. Oh, the image. That's one last thing we probably want to fix. Let me see how we're doing on time. Okay. Yeah, 50 minutes. Yeah, okay. We can just gonna finish this up first. So let's type image. Again, you're just taking the very first. So here we have the image. It has a source, has an alternative title, but we don't need to type that all out. All we're doing in the CSS is telling it what's the tag name. Close. Okay. So we want to change it so the width is not, you know, this. So let's type, I don't know if this will work actually, but let me check max width 100%. See what this does. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So max width 100%. 100% is one way you can make something take the full space of your like screen. So if I move this, you can see the image resizes, because all I'm saying with this code is I want the image to take the full width, and it's a good useful way if, for example, you know, you're viewing something on mobile, you want to make sure the image gets smaller, right? So that's called responsive design. So it's one way of doing it. You might notice in here that I'm using pixels. It depends. Different situations might need you to use different kind of values, but in this case, percentages make the most sense. You might notice, you know, as I'm making the website bigger or smaller, the text is not changing in size, but the image is. That's exactly because we said we want the image to be the full size, but we didn't say, oh, I want the font to get smaller, I want the font to get larger. And that's something, again, you can code in, and you can write into CSS. I'm not going to show it now, but you can write something like, if the screen is smaller than 600 pixels, I want all of my text to be smaller. I want all of my images to take less space, and so on, to make sure that the same website looks differently on a computer and on a mobile device. And I think that's all I had for very basic. Oh, I have one other thing maybe I can show. If we go to paragraph, see, there's sorry, I'm kind of dehydrating myself right now. So one interesting thing as well is that when you're working with content is that, you know, spacing is important. Sure, the width of elements and so on, but you want, the text right now looks a little bit ugly because it's so close to the border, right? So there's a very important concept in CSS, which is margins and padding and borders. Yeah, there's the full explanation page here, but we're not gonna read that. We're just gonna, you know, play around. If you add a padding, I'm gonna say padding 20 pixels. You can see here, it gives that box a bit more space inside, so the text is not, you know, sticking to the border. Now, if I add a margin, and writing it that specific way, it will, didn't do much. Let's increase it. Okay, it actually makes the elements themselves further from one another. So the way this works is quite simple, is that when you have a, let's say, a paragraph, you can add a border to it if you want, and you can make it so the item is further away from its border and has more space inside. So that's the padding, or you can increase the spacing outside, so between elements. So if that sounds a little bit complex, don't worry too much about it. Again, because this is something that web developers struggle a lot with alignment, this is something, just to wrap back to the beginning, we can use the inspector for. So right-clicking, inspect element, and if I just raise this above, look at that. You have it might look a little bit different on Chrome again, and depending on the website you're on, the specific element you might be clicking on might not have those properties, so it might take a little bit of searching, but you can see here, padding, margin, position. Let's select, yeah, let me just select that, but there's this kind of different icons, and one of them allows you, if you click on it, allows you to actually look at the website with your mouse, and then if you click on it, it will show you the exact piece of code that corresponds to that element. And the other way to do it is to actually, you know, look through the code and for that to show you the element on the page. So now I'm focused, I think, on this image, and I have some information about its margin, its padding, and I can easily debug and test some values. You can see here, moves downwards. And if I hover over it, it shows me, you can see the like little dotted lines, and it shows me that I've added some padding at the top here. I can also add a margin. That margin will show here. Like right now, it doesn't seem like there's much difference in what it does. Like I could have used just the margin instead of adding a padding, but this makes sense once you have a few elements and you want to choose whether you wanted the element to be, you know, close to other elements, but have more space inside the content box, or you want elements to be further away from each other, but, you know, maybe have less space inside of them. So it just takes a little bit of trial and error. Let me see. Oh yeah, one other example I wanted to give, now that we've done a little bit of HTML and CSS, just to give you a taster of what JavaScript looks like. Here we go. There's this little pen. Here we go. So what, I should probably send a link to this. Oh, actually, I'll probably also, should have a Google Drive link, but I'll find that afterwards for the actual slides, so you have them. So, okay, let's see what happens here. scroll over the main header to see what happens to me. Okay. So as I'm hovering with the mouse, this header changes in color. So as I said at the very beginning, JavaScript is for interactivity, user input, things interacting with each other, sending, downloading scripts or code. So all you have to write to get this done actually is these few lines. Now, you might realize why I didn't want to do any JavaScript this session, because as you can see, the writing is even more confusing than HTML and CSS. But again, just as the very beginning where we were going through a website and just figuring out which words we knew, we can do the same thing here. So H1, H2, those are things we know. H1 hover, and then we have function, and then we have H2 toggle class red. Okay. Maybe we should then look at what this class red actually is. So we have our CSS here. Okay, red, it's a class. We know that because it has a dot in front of it. Color red, font size 40. Okay. Now, what do the H1 and H2 have on them? Okay, we have this. The star here just means everything. So we want all elements to have, a certain text style, which makes sense. You don't want to specify, H1, H2, H3 have to have this text style, font style, if they're all the same. So you just say, everything has this style. And you can specify then, if you want H1 to look different, you can then say, H1 should have a font family Arial. Is that gonna work? It's probably already using Arial. Font family monospace. Oh, here we go. So as you can see here, that's the reason for the cascading aspect of the style sheets, is that it's gonna look at what things are more specific. So here I've said everything should have this text style, this font family. But then I said H1 in specific, like it's a more specific definition, should have this style. And that's just the way CSS works, and it's very useful if you want to define general things, but then look at specific things and change them a little bit. So you can experiment with that, define some properties where you put a star and then define something with H1. And also you could try, then maybe adding a class to something and seeing whether the class, takes precedence or not. So this is a good example because, yeah, this is just a good example. Let me see here, toggle class red. So yeah, all this actually does, the toggling just means that if this H2 has the class red attached, then it will show up as red, because the class then in the CSS says that this element should be red. And if it already has the class red, we'll remove it. So this is what the JavaScript handles by itself when it does toggle class. It just removes or adds red depending on whether we're hovering or not hovering over the other element. So that's pretty simple, and that's all it does. Now we can start editing things if we want, and say when I hover on H2, I want it to toggle the class. What will this do? Yeah, now I just have to hover over that element in specific, and I can also change this to say P here. So now I'm changing which element will have not the element I have to hover on, but the element that will actually be changed, right? And here you go. That's the one that's changing now. Yeah, pretty simple. So yeah, that's a very short example, but just to give you a taster. Okay. Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to post them now because we're nearing the end of the session, and I'll just very quickly go through a little learning and resources section. I think I might want to find where I have these slides in my drive, just so you can have them. Public. Oh, that's the one. Ooh, web development crash course. Let's see. Let me share that very quickly with you. How do I do that? Why is it not? Well, give me a sec. Oh, here we go. It's just a bit laggy. Link. Anyone on the internet with this link can view. You'll be able to see that. I posted it in chat. So further learning and resources, just very, very quickly. If I know I went very quickly, but hopefully it wasn't all too confusing, and you do have the links to the different places if you want to review this. Now, if you want to actually, take your time and work through some of these concepts yourself, there's a few places you can go to. There's Codecademy. It's the classic that gets recommended to people. It works as like bite-sized exercises that you work through. So that's what the interface looks like, quite similar to CodePen. We have an explanation on the left. You have your code, your live code on in the middle, and then you have the resulting website on the last panel. It also covers some languages that are not specifically web related, which is quite nice. And it's a good way to just like work through things. There's Free Code Camp. I really like this one because it's very extensive. You have things like different front-end libraries, how to do data analysis, how to do like algorithms with JavaScript, and different like authentication stuff, like lots of web technologies. And it's completely free and open source. So you don't have to pay or anything. It looks quite similar. Maybe it doesn't look as pretty, but it's very, very extensive. It's very good. This one is a recent one I discovered, and I quite like it. It's instead of being one of these kind of interfaces that you work through, the Odin project is more of a curriculum. So it gives you these pages where it says, okay, in this section we're covering HTML. Here are your learning outcomes, and here's your assignment. And the assignment will not be something you do in Odin project itself. It might be a link to maybe Codecademy or a link to a Free Code Camp section. And so you're meant to use all of these external resources to complement your learning and then figure out whether you understood everything right. So I find that quite useful because, oftentimes one singular website might have limitations, but when you're looking at a few different ones, it's quite useful. Now, if you want more like people interaction, which is very useful for learning, especially with code, you can spend a long time debugging things. And it's very useful to talk to people. So there's Code First Girls for that. So it's for women and non-binary people, and it's run by volunteer instructors. It's even still run right now remotely through Discord, I think. So they're free courses. I think it's 6-week courses or 8-week courses. They do some on basic web development and some on Python and some on databases. And would recommend checking that out. I was an instructor on this for a couple of times, and it's also very valuable as well. So if you do it and you become a Code First Girls alumni, you can definitely then start teaching, which is a very great way of learning as well. The GitHub Student Developer Pack is lots of freebies. So if you're a student, you just log in, and it will give you access to free domain names. So, like windowsofnewyork.com, like if you wanted to have something like that, you could have, your own name as a domain name. And then once you create a website, have this nice link. It gives you access to web development boot camps, which you might want to do because these are usually paid, and they offer these kind of smaller versions for free through the GitHub Student Developer Pack. Some hosting credits. So if you want to host things on Amazon Web Services or DigitalOcean, hosting your website, then they give you some free credits for that. And a few more things. It's important to note that web developers and web designers are two different things. Sometimes someone, wears all of the hats, but oftentimes those are separate things. So a web developer does not necessarily know how to make something look pretty, while a web designer does not necessarily know how to code. But obviously, it's quite useful to always know a little bit of the other person's work. So here are a few resources for designers. There's two newsletters, the Hack Design and Daily UI, which is give you lots of nice resources and exercises for practicing web design. And One Page Love is very lovely. It's especially useful if you kind of want to learn by doing and maybe want to learn by reproducing some examples, but don't want to, start your web development learning by trying to reproduce Twitter. Instead, you want something smaller. It's a website that shows it's a list of websites that are in one page. So you just scroll through something, it's just one page. And it's a source of inspiration. They also have some templates, some interviews, I think, and so on. And you can start getting inspired by those websites and figure out, how would I do this? Do I want to do it differently? What is actually behind this? Like, how would I implement something like this? And, take it one step at a time. Now let's, I almost closed that. Oh yeah, and a few final tips. It's totally fine if you make a lot of mistakes. It actually would be weird if you weren't. And I think the thing to remember is that you'll always kind of be making small mistakes, and it'll always take some time, especially as you're learning, because you're always taking on new content. But what's important is that as you make the same mistakes over and over, eventually you'll realize, what the different things that could have gone wrong are. So, for example, in my case, when I have a bug, sometimes it's something that, a mistake I've done many times before. So in my head, when I have a bug, I think, I already have automatically like 5 different thoughts about all the different things that could have gone wrong. So I then go step by step and figure out what might have gone wrong. So you kind of build up this debugging toolkit that's very useful. Learning how to Google is everything, just like how I was showing this websites, W Free Schools. Like, it's all about just kind of finding a place that explains something well to you, and then maybe copy pasting, starting editing some bits and doing a bit of reading. No one knows these tags by heart. Like every single time I make a website, I first open up one of my old websites and copy paste like the general structure of it, because I can't be bothered like writing it from scratch. And that's totally normal. Like, you don't want to be reinventing the wheel. And the way to work for code is to kind of make a small change, check that it is working, and then build on top of it. Just as we were doing when we were building this website, I didn't just like type everything out and then kind of talk you through it and then see the results. I was just constantly like making a small change and then checking if it was working, and then, making another small change, and then, oh, this wasn't working, so now I can fix it. That's really important, because if you're doing this, right away at what exact part something is failing, where the bug is. If you write everything out in one go, you don't know where the issue is. So it's very useful for, testing things. And similarly, when you're looking at unfamiliar code, the best way to figure out what it does, apart from, reading the documentation or just trying to understand it on your own, is to make small changes. Like, is there a number in there? You don't know what the number does? Well, then just change it. Just see what happens if it's 5. Well, change it to 100, change it to 0, change it to minus 100, and see what it does. And then you'll figure out maybe, what the purpose of that number is. And sometimes, you'll still be confused, but most of the times this tip does work. And your final tip is to work on a small project. I think that it's very useful for learning to kind of have this reward mechanism of, having something that you built. And oftentimes, even though like the Odin projects and Free Code Camp and Code Academy, they are quite good at, like, after every section, you're meant to do like a little independent project. I think it's quite useful to also make projects that you're personally excited about. So it can be something very tiny, like a portfolio website or like a small one-page tribute page. But the fact that you'll like start a project and that you'll kind of, figure out a few different elements, put them together into one cohesive piece, it's very useful for learning, because that's what you want to get used to. You want to get used to working through issues and then finishing projects and going through the process of making a project, rather than just small exercises, because it can feel quite demotivating. At first it's exciting. You're like, oh yeah, I got 5% into, a Code Academy course. But then at some point, I remember my learning journey, I used to feel like, oh, what's the purpose of this though? Like, yeah, I learned about this tag and that tag, but I'm not actually using them anywhere. So it's very useful to, really consolidate your learning by working on these small projects. And yeah, that is all. Apologies again for being tremendously late. I do hope that, thank you for sticking with us, and I do hope that you learned something today. I know that this went very, very fast because we only had an hour, but hopefully whatever I was saying made some sense. And if you have any questions or anything, you can definitely, ping me on Twitter, send me an email, check out Hoppers as well. They teach you lots of interesting things, and they give you lots of opportunities to socialize. And I think that's all. Hopefully you have a better idea of what development consists of when it comes to web development, and that you are interested in maybe doing a little bit more of it. Yeah, so I think that's it. That's it for us. So thank you very much. Yeah, no, I'll stick around. I'll be on Twitter. So let me know if you have any further questions or just like career questions.